Hello, my name is Lizzie, and this is Lizzie's Literary Life, and today we are talking about all the books that I read in August, featuring Simply Spiked Lemonade, watermelon flavor. So, I have my Simply, I have my spreadsheet. This is what we do. We talk about books every month, and also more often than that, but specifically in this format, we talk about the books that I read in the previous month, each month. Last month was August, and we're going to talk about the books I read. First, I have to tell you that August was a weird month for my reading because I'm a teacher, and I went back to school in the middle of August, and my life got 100% busier halfway through the month, and I just stopped reading. So I think the last book I finished was on August 19th. I did not finish a book until today after that. But I read a lot in the first half of the month, or a lot for, my averages this year, a reasonable amount, because I was not doing really anything else until I went back to work. So it's a weird month. I read 10 books, but they were all in the first half of the month. Let's do some stats. And as you know, stats are serious business. So we have to put Miss Simply down while we discuss our stats. Okay. Got the spreadsheet out. I read 10 books in the month of August that totaled 3,372 pages for an average of 337.2 pages per book. Funny how when you divide by 10, it just moves the decimal point one space. Can you tell I teach 6th grade math? That's the concept we're covering later this week as a review from 5th grade. Anyway, my average hours of audiobook listening, average length of audiobook in hours, was 9.327. I've read several audiobooks this month. Audiobooks were my friend this month. My average rating was 3.35, which is fine. I have not had great average ratings the last couple months. Last month it was 3.27, so we're getting better. The month before it was 2.44. So we are steadily increasing our average rating, but still not ideal. I spent an average of 8 days reading each book, and my average pages per day was 112.4. I spent a total of 38.6 hours reading, which that number always is that's a lot. That's that's a day and a half. When you say it that way, it doesn't sound like a lot. It's what happened. It's what happened. It's the number it is. That's an average of 3.86 hours on each book for an average pages per hour of 97.1. That's almost 100 pages an hour. That's pretty good, especially considering I had a lot of audiobooks this month, and audiobooks go slower. That's pretty good. I had 8 books on my TBR, and I read 4 of them. Let me see if I actually, because I completed 4 of them. Did I have any DNFs from my TBR? We are going to find out. Because those also count, but my spreadsheet doesn't count them. Oh, I didn't change that number from last month. I only had 7 books on my TBR. Excuse me for the misinformation. I only had 7 books on my TBR. And I did only read 4 of them. Though now, as of today, I have read 5.5 of them. So we're getting closer. But I read 4 of the 7, which is 57%. The graph that you have on the screen is probably up to date and not the misinformation I was looking at earlier. Okay, here is our genre breakdown. It looks very diverse. We've got a lot of genres this month. A lot of genres. We had 2 horrors, 2 contemporaries, 2 mystery thrillers, a sci-fi, a memoir, a nonfiction, and a fantasy. That is a lot of different genres. So, good for me. Reading diversely. Next, we read mostly adult books with one young adult. We read half of our books on audio. Most of the rest was physical, and I guess one ebook, which is different. Like the trends in my format over like the last couple years has been the most interesting to me. I'm really leaning into physical books lately, which last year was all ebooks. The year before was like all audio. So it's interesting. And then my rating breakdown, I gave a lot of 3.5s this month. I think 3.5 is like kind of my go-to now, where it's like, I liked it, but it wasn't anything special. Like, it wasn't that great, but I liked it. But it wasn't just fine. Like, I liked it, but it wasn't great. That's a 3.5. And there were a lot of those this month. Because there just tends to be, I feel like it's the bell curve. Like, most books are just, like, kind of in the middle. There was 1 2-star, nothing higher than a 4-star. So that's unfortunate, but that's okay. We will find more 5-star books soon. I've been being very verbose today. I've already talked for 7 minutes. We're going to go through these books really fast, okay? I'm not tired of these videos, but I'm kind of tired of these videos. Like, I just feel like, I mean, maybe it's because I already know what I'm going to say. It seems boring. But it seems boring to me, so I need to spice it up, and I think I need to spice it up by going faster. So, speed run. First book I read in August was Don't Think, Dear, On Loving and Leaving Ballet by Alice Robb. This is a memoir. This was just fine. Honestly, I gave it 3 stars, but in retrospect, like, honestly could be worse. Like, I think it was the marketing. Like, it was marketed as a memoir. I really wanted her story of, like, her relationship with ballet and how that progressed over time. Really, it was just like an exploration of the industry and like, and New York City Ballet as a whole, rather than her personal experience in SAB. And I just was like, it just didn't do it for me. It just didn't do it for me because it was just like facts that were like general, and I really wanted her specific experience, and I did not get that. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Next, I read One of the Girls by Lucy Clark, which was a thriller. It was a thriller. It was like kind of like I was engaged, but I also was like, when is something going to happen? You know, like 60% of the way through, there's been no like thrillery elements. And I was like engaged in the petty dramas, but I was like, what's going to actually go down? Oh, I didn't move myself back. I'm a hot mess. I do the stats, and then I move myself back. Now I'm centered. Sorry if that was bothering you. One of the Girls, Lucy Clark, it's about a bachelorette party with, like, a bunch of girls, and, like, they all have secrets or whatever. I thought it was fine. I gave it 3.5 stars. Like, I enjoyed my time reading it. Nothing special. Next, I read Your First Year, How to Survive and Thrive as a New Teacher, because I am a new teacher. This was an audiobook I found on Scribd that I was like kind of panicking one time in the car, and I was like, oh my god, I'm about to start my first real year as a full-time teacher, and I was freaking out, and so I listened to this book, and it was okay. I think like part of it is that I was more prepared than I thought I was, and so like a lot of the information did not feel new to me. It was like, because I literally did a year of a master's teacher preparation program, and I student taught, like, you know, I've done the thing. I was more prepared than I thought I was, and so I was kind of disappointed in, like, it didn't give me a lot of stuff that felt new, but there was some stuff that was useful. It wasn't a bad book, and I think if you're going into teaching having not done, like, a student teaching practicum experience, it would be super helpful, and there were some things that, like, reminded me of, like, so it wasn't bad. It just was fine. I gave it 3 stars. Up next, I read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is a weird one. Because I started it and I hated it. I thought it was so bad. Like, because everyone loves this book. Let me tell you what it's about. If you don't know, Project Hail Mary, the premise is that a guy wakes up and he doesn't remember who he is or like anything about how he got to where he is, and he's on a spaceship. I thought that premise, like what can I say without spoilers? I thought that the memory loss thing was really like convenient. Like I think it was not well done at all. He just got memories back when he needed them. It was like, oh, I wish I remembered this. Flashback. And so I didn't like that part. The plot was excellent. I think the pacing and the plotting and this discussion of the science aspects was really good, except that I think sometimes the tone in talking about the science was like simultaneously pretentious and like condescending, but also like not that complex. Like, it was talking about things that were not all that complex as if they were really complex. Like, I don't know. I just felt like it talked down to the reader a little bit. The thing that really mostly was an issue for me was that the writing of, like, emotion and the characterization I thought was really poor. I think, like, Andy Weir, I think it could have been an excellent book if Andy Weir had collaborated with, like, a literary fiction author. And I know that, like, that's my personal cup of tea, but I just felt like it was lacking so much like emotional depth in the writing. I think it was the writing that was not good, not technically good, and just was not working for me and letting me connect to it. Like these emotional beats would be happening and I was like, I feel it, like the plot is so strong, but I would just be like, the writing's just bad though. Like, I don't know. And it's funny because previously, before I read this book, I was like I had so much like cognitive dissonance about Andy Weir. That's not the right word, but because everyone loves Project Hail Mary, and then the only reviews of Artemis I've heard are really, really terrible. And now that I've read it, I totally understand because I see the appeal for Project Hail Mary, but I also can see how if Andy Weir like tried to write a woman, it would be awful because he just kind of can't write a little bit. That was mean. I don't know. I gave it 3.5 stars, but it was like a lot of back and forth because I really enjoyed the ride. And I thought the plot was really well done. I just thought it was fundamentally kind of badly written. And that's my hot take. Next, I read Wish You Were Here by Jodi Picoult. Okay, let's roll the clip.
Hello. You're seeing this later. And the fan is on and I usually turn it off when I film, but I don't care. I'm here this far in my book and I'm irritated. I don't like it. I just rolled my eyes so far. They rolled out of my head and I have no eyes currently. And it's just like, I feel like Jodi Picoult just like, everything that's like, this is the worst possible decision to make that no one would ever make. She's like, yeah, go for it. Just for funsies. And it's very frustrating because there's like actual serious issues that could be discussed in this book. And instead she's like, whatever. I don't like it.
So yeah, I didn't like this book. Let me tell you what it's about. Let me first tell you the story of why I read it. I think I said this in my TBR video, but my best friend from high school, Elta, was visiting me like on her way up the East Coast. She was like staying in Maine for the summer, and she like stopped by for a night, a weekend with me, and we like hung out. And then she was like, it was the first weekend of Wonderthon, so like I was talking about books a lot, and she like had this book and she was reading it because her mom had recommended it to her. So she was reading it, and then she's not a huge reader, and she like accidentally, I say not a huge reader, she reads a normal human amount, not like a crazy booktube amount. She left it at my house by accident. She was like, oh no, I failed the readathon, because I was like talking about Wonderthon all weekend. Anyway, I was like, okay, well, I'll read it and let you know how it is when you come back down from Maine down to Maryland, where she lives like most of the time. So I was like, okay, I have to read it. Not really my thing, like not something I would pick up on my own, but I read it. It is about a woman who, she works in like art sales, and she has a plan to go with her boyfriend to the Galapagos for like a vacation, and she like thinks he's going to propose and it's going to be this huge magical thing. And then COVID hits. It's March 2020. COVID hits right before the trip starts. He's a nurse or a doctor or I don't know. He works in a hospital. He's like a resident. He's doing his residency. And so he has to stay because it's like all hands on deck. And he's like, she ends up going. And she gets stuck there. And it's just her like journeys there in this like peaceful island that's completely quarantined. So it's like idyllic, but like she's just there with the locals. There are no other tourists there. And her experience through the pandemic through that. I think it is a promising premise. I think it could be really good. And the thing that frustrates me so much is that Jodi Picoult can write. Like, there are elements of this book that are quite good. I think some of the discussions of COVID, about the experience of this woman's partner working in a hospital through this time, I think she did her research there. I think she talked to people who were on the front lines in hospitals and really captured that experience really well. The other thing I think she did really well was the discussion of the woman's career back home. I thought that like peek into the art world was really interesting. But what Jodi Picoult does that I hate is that she makes everything so sensational. She just takes every issue. She's like cherry picking like issues and traumas off the tree and then writing it like a thriller. It's like, oh my God, it bugs me because it feels so sensationalized and trivializing. Like, it's so dramatized that it's like, feels like it's not being explored in depth, if that makes sense. And there are things that I think she uses these issues in her books and she doesn't do her proper research. The things that, and this is maybe a mild spoiler, so you can skip ahead if you really want to read this book, but the things that I think Jodi Picoult like cherry picked and did really poorly were LGBTQ plus youth and teenagers struggling with self-harm. I think she tackled those issues really poorly, and that was really frustrating. And then just like, obviously there were twists that like drove me nuts, as you saw in that clip. I just thought it was not good. I gave it 2 stars because there were parts of it that were good, but most of it was bad. So I gotta get through these fast. Oh my gosh. Okay. Next, I read Empire Stand by Tasha Suri. This is a fantasy book about like a desert, and like the magic system is like a religion of like dancing, which I thought was really cool. I thought the magic system was really cool. I thought this mostly was just like okay. I don't remember much about it. It was not super memorable. I gave this 3.5 stars in that like I enjoyed it, but I don't know. I will read the sequel. We'll see how I feel about it. But I just thought it was like kind of forgettable. I don't really have anything to say about it. It just was like fine. I enjoyed my time, so 3.5 stars. I'm just gonna move on. Next, I read Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. This I also gave 3.5 stars. I thought it was good. There were parts that I enjoyed. I felt like there was stuff missing. Like, I think there could have been a much deeper exploration of like, I don't even know what specifically. It just felt unsatisfying. I think part of that was like kind of the point that like losing someone slowly like that is like, it doesn't have anything satisfying about it. And I get that. I just didn't love it because it wasn't satisfying. I don't know. And I wanted to know why. There was so much that was hinted at with like the conspiracy, corruption in the government, like, and it just was like, I wanted to know about it. And we didn't get to know about it. The writing was beautiful, and the themes I think it discussed and the way that it portrayed those themes through the dissatisfying nature of like how it was, were powerful, but it wasn't a phenomenal, like, I didn't love the reading experience the way some people do. And then I read One of Us Is Back by Karen M. McManus. This is the new, what's it called? One of Us Is Lying book, the third book. It definitely didn't need to exist, but I did enjoy it. I gave it 3.5 stars, as I have given most things in this video. This is, well, you know, it's the third in the One of Us Is Lying series. It's like, basically like the person who goes to jail like for the crime at the end of the first book is released, and so like they're dealing with that, and like new things start to happen, stuff starts to come back up. I enjoy the characters a lot. I have a lot of connection to these characters after having read the 2 books and watched the show, and it just like feels like they're fun characters to revisit. So I enjoyed my time. It definitely did not need to exist. Like, it was not a necessary continuation of the story, but like, it is what it is. It happened and I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. So, you know, 3.5 stars. 2 more. I read next A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, which was a reread, and for the Shelf This Book Club, hosted by Is Bailey Reading, and this month chosen by Danielle Reads. This is, I literally read it earlier this year. I read it in like February. So I've already reviewed it. Last time I gave it 4.5 stars. This time I gave it 4. Last time I read it on audio. This time I read it physically. I think the audiobook is excellent. I think the narration is really good. The physical reading experience was still good. I think it's well written, but it didn't like pack the same punch as the audio did. And I just didn't love it as much on a reread. I thought it's good. It's a retelling of Dracula's story told by one of his brides, Constanza. That's how they say it in the audiobook. And it's Constanta with a T, but they always go Constanda. And so it like, I don't know. Anyway, I thought it was Constanza with a Z. A bit of whatever. I enjoyed it. I didn't get to go to all of the discussion for it, but I did enjoy my reread. I'm glad I reread it. And I'm glad that all of these other people got a chance to read it, because I think it is a really fun book. And lastly, I read One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is one of Taylor Jenkins Reid's backlist books, and I love Taylor Jenkins Reid's historical fiction. The popular on TikTok, like everyone loves them, and I am everyone. Her recent releases. I had not previously dove into her backlist books, her contemporary fiction, but this was pretty good. Like, her writing style is really just compulsively readable, and I thought this one is the one. You've probably heard the synopsis before, but this is the one where the woman is about to get married, and she was married, and then her husband dies in a plane crash, and 2 years later she's about to get remarried, and her husband is actually alive, and comes back and had been stranded at sea for 2 years. I thought that it sounds like an outlandish premise, but then I think that Taylor Jenkins Reid writes it really groundedly, and then it explores some themes that are really interesting through this thing that probably would never happen, but it talks about can you love again? Can you have more than one actual true love of your life? And the idea that love is circumstantial, and not circumstantial, but you grow, and if you are someone 2 years later, you're not going to be the same person, and so you're not going to love the same person, and you're not going to be loved by the same person. I thought those themes were interesting. I think it was really well written and compelling and readable, and I gave it 4 stars. And my quest to do this fast, I don't know if it worked. I feel like I talked fast, but maybe I just talked more. So I don't know. But that's all the books that I read in August. I hope you enjoyed this video. Tell me if you have any ideas for how I can spice up these wrap-up videos, like any sort of gimmick. Like, I've thought about, like, confining, like, I have to say this many words, or like I have to do this time limit. I don't know. Or if you like them the way they are and you think they're entertaining, let me know, because I am unsure about these wrap-up videos. So leave a comment down below about these wrap-up videos, or about any of the books that I discussed this month, or any books that are similar to the books that I discussed this month that you think I would like. And like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.